Welcome to this week's Ancient History News. My headline story is about a new study into a submerged Neolithic bridge on Mallorca. This analysis pushes back the date for the first human occupation of this Western Mediterranean island by more than 1,000 years. I then discuss geoarchaeological and geochemical research into copper pollution in ancient Egypt, and a new study which presents both direct and indirect evidence for the use of skin boats in Neolithic Scandinavia. Submerged Neolithic bridge in Mallorca reveals earlier dates than previously thought. Up until recently, the earliest evidence for human habitation in Mallorca dated to around 4,400 years ago. Now, a new study carried out by the University of South Florida has pushed that date back. Mallorca is on the Balearic Islands and is located in the Western Mediterranean. Even though it's the sixth largest island in the Mediterranean Sea, it was one of the last to be colonized by humans. In the past, two occupation dates of approximately 7,000 and 9,000 years ago were obtained from bone samples in caves. However, these samples were subsequently found to be unreliable. In a recent study published in the journal Communications, Earth and Environment, the research team analyzed a submerged archaeological structure in the Genovese cave, which is also known as Cova d'Embesso. This is on the east coast of Mallorca. Over the years, pottery sherds have been found in the cave, as well as several stone structures. One of the latter is a stone path that leads from the cave's entrance to an underground lake, with an 8.62 meter long cyclopean wall running alongside it. The stone structure that's the subject of the study is a bridge which goes across the lake at a height of 0.5 meters. It's made up of large limestone blocks stacked on top of each other with no mortar or cement. The largest block measures 1.63 by 0.6 meters. Since the bridge leads into the only dry chamber in the cave, which is known as the Bat's Room, and since pottery tentatively dated to the Naviform period between 1550 and 1000 BCE was found in there, it was previously thought that the bridge must date to the same time. However, the new research changes this. At the moment, the bridge is submerged by just over a meter due to sea level change. At times of high sea level stillstands, the cave was partially flooded, causing encrustations of calcite and aragonite to form over stalactites. These are called phreatic overgrowths. In the upper part of the bridge, a coloration mark runs along its entire length. This must have been caused by the precipitation of a calcite crust at a time when the water reached that point and stayed there for a while. The water level then increased, but the mark remained. In the study, the researchers used a generally accepted late Holocene sea level curve to calculate when the cave was submerged in order to date the construction of the bridge. This generated a date of 5,600 years ago at the latest, since the sea level at that time was close to the top of the bridge. They also suggest that it's unlikely the structure is more than 6,000 years old, since the sea level was so low at that point as not to warrant the building of a bridge. Between 5,964 and 5,359 years ago, the sea level remained constant, and it was during those several hundred years that the calcite crust must have formed along the length of the bridge. All this information suggests that close to 6,000 years ago, the bridge was built to facilitate the crossing of a cave lake formed due to rapid Holocene sea level rise. The sea level then remained stable enough for a long period during which the calcite crust formed. U-series data for the phreatic overgrowths from both this cave and the Drac cave support these dates. Copper pollution in Egypt found to date back 5,000 years. A new study published in the journal Geology details copper contamination in the ancient Khufu port, around 1 kilometer from the Great Pyramid of Giza. The team of researchers carried out a geochemical analysis of sediment cores taken from a part of urban Cairo where the Khufu harbour was once located. They measured levels of copper, arsenic, aluminium, iron, and titanium, as well as carrying out radiocarbon testing on 6 samples. The harbour is the oldest known port in the world and was situated alongside the now defunct Khufu branch of the Nile. Khufu harbour was a major site for the manufacture of copper tools, which were sometimes alloyed with arsenic to make them last longer. Copper tools such as blades, chisels, and drills were used by the ancient Egyptians to work stone, wood, and textiles. The research, which used inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry, found that metal contamination had begun around 3265 BCE, which is 200 years earlier than previously thought. This means that metal working started in Giza during the pre-dynastic period. Prior to this research, there was limited evidence for a pre-dynastic period occupation of the area, namely 13 graves north of Giza, but the geoarchaeological record shows that copper was being worked there at that time. Metal contamination at the port peaked during late pyramid construction of 4,500 years ago, and even continued when the Nile was at a very low level around 2,200 BCE. At that time of social and political upheaval, it's quite surprising to find that metal working continued, but this was probably to support the increased agricultural activity. Pollen grain analysis in the past has shown that the receding Nile left behind fertile floodplains, which were exploited intensively for agriculture. New studies suggest Neolithic Scandinavians used skin boats. During the Neolithic, the pitted ware culture fished and hunted across Scandinavia and appear to have been well adapted to the maritime environments. Obviously, they must have used boats to travel. However, due to a dearth of evidence, the type of boats they used is not well understood. A new study published in the Journal of Maritime Archaeology suggests that they used skin boats for both short and long distance travel. Many previous studies have shown that materials such as clay, animals, and people were non-local and must have travelled over vast expanses of water, including the open ocean. This indicates that the pitted ware culture most likely had highly developed maritime technology. Direct and indirect evidence for ancient seafaring has been found in many regions of the world in the Paleolithic, the Mesolithic, and the Neolithic. The oldest actual boat to have been identified is a dugout wooden canoe dating to 10,000 years ago that was found in the Netherlands. Other ancient boats were made of reed, bark, planks, and skin. Retrofitted reindeer antlers dating to the late Mesolithic were discovered in Germany and look as though they had been frames for skin boats. In Scandinavia, only a few seaworthy vessels have been found dating to the Neolithic, and these are logboats. However, some fragments do suggest that skin boats were in use as well. The oldest paddle to be found in Scandinavia dates to between 7040 and 6650 BCE and was discovered in Sweden. This is several thousand years earlier than the oldest logboats to have been found. Pine pitch imprints from a Mesolithic site called Husby Clef have been interpreted as indirect evidence of boat repair and are even older than the paddle. It's possible that both dugouts and skin boats were in use at the same time for different purposes, but that the first use of skin boats probably predated that of dugouts. Some interesting finds from northern Sweden which support the skin boats hypothesis are what appear to be the keels of skin boat frames. These were first discovered in the early 20th century and were interpreted as sled or sleigh skis, but a re-evaluation suggests they belong to skin boats. Another interesting piece of evidence comes from northern Scandinavian rock art. In the paper, the researchers analysed the rock art panels at Alta in Norway. Rock art started earlier than the pitted ware culture's presence in the region, but continued when they arrived in the area. It also seems that the earlier maritime hunter-gatherers had socio-economic similarities with the pitted ware culture, so they may have influenced one another. The Alta rock art is made up of 6,000 engraved images on 100 panels and is located on the ancient coast. It has been dated to between 5,000 and 3,000 years ago. Marine creatures are depicted alongside boats of different sizes. The boat depictions are reminiscent of umiaks as per ethnographic accounts. Umiaks are skin boats that were, and in some areas still are, used by the Yupik and the Inuit. Little wood was available close to Alta, which is another argument for the engravings having depicted skin boats rather than dugouts or other types of wooden boat. However, there are also examples that more clearly appear to be log boats. By analysing the viewshed between 115 pitted ware culture sites, the researchers conclude that the majority of them were located on small islands next to the beach, on mainland coasts, or close to fords. This argues that the pitted ware culture needed lightweight but highly seaworthy vessels, which skin boats would have been. One of the most common tool types found at these sites is the stone scraper, which could have been used for the processing of hides and is another argument for the use of skin boats. Since seals would have been needed to make skin boats, the large amount of seal fauna found at pitted ware culture sites also suggests they were hunted for this industry. Although seal oil could have been used for food, for combustion, and for lamps, it may also have been used to construct and maintain skin boats. Seal oil has been found through residue analysis of ceramic sherds. Overall, based on direct and indirect evidence, there's a good possibility that skin boats were used in Neolithic Scandinavia. However, to be more certain, further relevant discoveries would need to be made, and perhaps new scientific methods such as agent-based digital voyage modelling could be used. That's it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Thank you to my patrons and channel members, and I'll see you next time.